The inheritance reading shattered the moment Harlan Briggs stepped through the door. Clara Tanner's pen froze over the mortgage ledger as every head in the First Bank of Juniper Prairie turned toward the surveyor. Dust from the trail still clung to his dark jacket. His hat shadowed eyes that swept the room with the careful assessment of a man who trusted nothing. 3 creditors sat frozen in their chairs. The lawyer's voice died mid-sentence, and Clara felt her carefully constructed world tilt on its axis, because she knew exactly why he was here. She knew what document he carried in that leather case. The inheritance in question belonged to old Samuel Tanner, Clara's uncle, who had died 3 weeks prior, leaving behind High Wind Ranch and a tangle of debts that could pull the whole family under. Clara had spent every evening since the funeral going through the books, searching for a way to save what remained. She had found nothing but red ink and broken promises. And now, Harlan Briggs stood in the doorway, holding a surveyor's contract that could prove the ranch boundaries were never legally filed, which meant everything could be contested, which meant her family's last hope could vanish like smoke. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Briggs, we were not expecting you until tomorrow's session." Harlan's gaze moved to Clara. "I came early." He stepped inside, boot heels loud on the plank floor. "I need to speak with Miss Tanner." Alone. Clara's heart kicked against her ribs. She kept her face smooth, her voice steady. "I'm working, Mr. Briggs. If you need bank business, you may wait your turn like anyone else." His jaw tightened. "This isn't bank business." "Then, it can wait." "It cannot." The lawyer stood, frowning. "Mr. Briggs, if this concerns the Tanner estate, all discussions must occur in proper legal context with counsel present." Harlan turned his head just enough to pin the man with a look that could stop a rattlesnake. "What I have to say to Miss Tanner concerns my own affairs, not the estate. Unless you plan to follow her home and listen at her door, I suggest you sit back down." Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. She stood, pushing her chair back with deliberate calm. "Gentlemen, I will take a brief recess." She met Harlan's eyes. "5 minutes, Mr. Briggs. Not 1 second more." She walked past him into the narrow corridor that led to the back offices. She did not look back. She heard his footsteps behind her, steady and inevitable. Her pulse hammered. She had avoided him for 3 weeks. She had hoped he would leave town before this moment arrived. She had prayed the debt he owed to Dutch Keller would stay buried just a little longer. But prayers did not stop men like Keller, and secrets did not keep when surveyors came to town with contracts that could dismantle everything. She stopped in the small storage room where the old files were kept. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with yellowed papers and locked cash boxes. The air smelled of leather and ink. She turned to face him. The door clicked shut behind him. Harlan set the case on a crate. "Say it," he said quietly. "Say what?" "That you knew this was coming." Clara crossed her arms. "I knew Keller would collect eventually. I did not know he would send you. He did not send me. I came on my own. That makes it worse." His expression did not change. "I owe him $6,000, Clara. He wants High Wind Ranch as payment. If I do not deliver the survey that proves the deed is invalid, he will see me hanged for theft of company funds." Her breath caught. The theft had happened 2 years ago in Denver, before Harlan ever came to Juniper Prairie. She had discovered the truth 6 months ago when she processed a transfer request that bore Keller's signature and a note that referenced Briggs by name. She had been a fool to think she could keep that knowledge to herself. She had been a fool to think Keller would not use it. "You stole to pay a gambling debt," she said flatly. "I stole to pay for my sister's consumption treatment." Harlan's voice remained level, but something raw moved behind his eyes. "The gambling debt came after, when I tried to win back what I had lost. Keller bought the note from the man I owed. He has owned me ever since." Clara felt the words like a punch. "And now he wants to own my family's land. He wants the water rights. The ranch sits on the only year-round creek for 20 miles. If he controls that, he controls every cattle operation in the valley. He will squeeze them dry and buy them out one by one. Then do not give him the survey. He will kill me. Then leave. Tonight. Disappear." Harlan shook his head slowly. "He has men in every town between here and the Kansas line. I have tried running. It does not work." Clara's hands clenched. "So you will destroy my family to save yourself. I came here to offer you a way out. There is no way out. If the survey proves the deed is flawed, we lose everything. If you refuse to provide the survey, Keller kills you and finds another surveyor who will. Either way, we are finished. Not if we finish the cattle drive first." She stared at him. "What?" "Your uncle contracted a drive to Dodge City before he died. 300 head, payment on delivery. If you complete that drive, you will have enough money to file a new deed, pay off the back taxes, and buy out Keller's claim before he can move on it legally." Clara felt dizzy. The drive was supposed to leave in 2 weeks. Her cousin Jacob was meant to lead it, but Jacob had broken his leg in a riding accident, and the crew had scattered to other work. No one in the family had the experience to take 300 cattle across 200 miles of open country in the height of summer. "I cannot lead a cattle drive," she said. "No. But I can." She laughed. A bitter sound. "You, the man who just admitted he is here to steal our land." Harlan stepped closer. His voice dropped. "I am here because I owe a debt I cannot pay, and I am tired of running. But I am also here because I have spent 6 months watching you hold that bank together with nothing but grit and a ledger book. I have seen you turn away men twice your size when they tried to bully you into extending credit. I have seen you sit up all night balancing accounts so the depositors would not panic. You deserve better than to lose everything because your uncle could not read a land map." Clara's throat tightened. "And what do you get out of this? If we complete the drive, you pay me $2,000 from the proceeds. I use that money to buy my freedom from Keller. I give you an amended survey that confirms the deed. Everyone walks away clean." She shook her head. "Keller will never accept $2,000 when he can take the whole ranch. He will if I tell him the ranch is worthless without the water rights. And the water rights belong to a separate filed claim that I discovered during my survey work. I can create that claim. I can make it look legitimate enough to tie him up in court for years. He will take the cash. You are asking me to trust you. I am asking you to trust yourself. You are the only person in this town who knows what I did and has not used it against me. You kept my secret for 6 months. Why?" Clara met his eyes. "Because I know what it is to be desperate. Because I know what it is to carry shame that does not belong to you. Because my father lost everything in a bank collapse back east and spent his last years broken by it, and I swore I would never let that happen to anyone I could help. Even a thief. Even a thief." The silence stretched. Outside, a wagon rattled past. Someone shouted, The distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer echoed through the walls. "If I do this," Clara said slowly, "if I take the drive and trust you to lead it, you will give me your word that Keller gets nothing but cash and a false trail. You have it. Your word is worth nothing if you are lying. Then test me. Come to High Wind tonight. Look at the herd. Look at the route. If you think I am leading you into a trap, walk away. I will find another way to die." That is not funny. It was not meant to be. She studied his face. The tired eyes, the tight line of his mouth, the way he held himself like a man who had not slept well in years. She thought of her father's face in the months before he died. The same exhausted resolve. She thought of her mother's tears when they buried him. She thought of the ranch that was all they had left. She thought of the fact that Harlan Briggs had just handed her a weapon that could destroy him. And he had done it without flinching. "I will come tonight," she said. "If I do not like what I see, this conversation never happened." "Agreed. And if you betray me, I will make sure every lawman between here and Denver knows exactly what you stole and who you stole it from." "Understood." She pushed past him toward the door. Her hand shook as she reached for the latch. She steadied it. She would not let him see her fear. She would not let anyone see it. That was how you survived. You hid the cracks. You kept moving. You made the hard choice, and you lived with it. "Clara," he said. She stopped, but did not turn. "Thank you." She left, without answering. The rest of the day passed in a blur of forced normalcy. Clara processed deposits, approved a small loan, answered questions about interest rates with the same calm efficiency she always brought to her work. She felt the weight of eyes on her every time someone glanced toward the corridor where she and Harlan had disappeared. She ignored the whispers. She had been ignoring whispers her whole life. At 5 o'clock, she locked the cash drawer, hung her apron on its peg, and stepped out into the slanted golden light of late afternoon. The town stretched along the single main street, false-fronted buildings casting long shadows across the dust. Juniper Prairie was not large. 2 saloons, a mercantile, a livery, the bank, a church, and a scattering of houses. Beyond that, nothing but grassland rolling toward distant bluffs. She walked home to the small house she shared with her mother and younger brother. Her mother was at the stove, stirring a pot of beans. Her brother sat at the table cleaning his rifle. Clara hung her shawl on the hook. "I am going to the ranch tonight." Her mother turned, frowning. "Alone? I need to look at the herd." "Jacob cannot take the drive, Clara. The doctor said his leg will not heal for another month." "I know. Then what are you doing?" "Finding another way." Her mother's face tightened. "There is no other way. We will have to sell what we can and move on. It is not the end of the world." Clara met her eyes. It was the end of Father's world. Her mother flinched. That was different. It was exactly the same. He lost everything because he trusted the wrong people and had no way to fight back. We have a way. I am going to take it. You cannot lead a cattle drive. No. But I can hire someone who can. Her brother looked up sharply. Who? Clara hesitated. Then she said the name that had been burning in her mind all day. Harlan Briggs. Her mother's spoon clattered into the pot. Absolutely not. He is the best surveyor in the territory. He knows the land. He knows cattle. He can get us to Dodge. He is also the man who is supposed to file the report that proves we have no legal claim to the ranch. You think he is going to help us instead? You think he is going to choose us over whatever Keller is paying him? Clara kept her voice steady. I think he wants a way out as badly as we do. And you trust him. I trust that he needs this drive to succeed just as much as we do. Her mother shook her head. You are gambling our last chance on a man you barely know. I am gambling on a man who told me the truth when he could have lied. That is more than most people ever offer. Her brother stood. I will go with you. No. Clara held up a hand. If this goes wrong, I need you here to protect Mother. If I do not come back by morning, you take her east and do not look back. Clara, promise me. He set his jaw, but he nodded. I promise. She kissed her mother's cheek, ignored the tears in the older woman's eyes, and walked out into the cooling evening. The ride to High Wind Ranch took an hour. Clara borrowed a horse from the livery and rode west along the rutted wagon road. The prairie opened around her, vast and empty except for the wind and the call of distant coyotes. The sky deepened from gold to violet. By the time she reached the ranch gates, the first stars were out. Harlan was waiting by the corral. He had changed into range clothes, worn denim, and a faded shirt rolled to the elbows. He held a lantern in one hand. The light caught the planes of his face, casting his eyes into shadow. He did not smile. He simply nodded and turned toward the pasture beyond the barn. Clara dismounted and followed. The herd was smaller than she remembered, scattered across the dark grassland, 300 head of cattle, restless shapes moving in the twilight. She could hear the low murmur of their voices, the shuffle of hooves, the jingle of a bell somewhere in the darkness. Harlan stopped at the fence. They are strong stock. Your uncle bought well. But they are not trail broke. It will take hard driving to move them. How long? 3 weeks if the weather holds. 4 if we hit storms. How many men? We need 6. I have 2 I trust. You will have to find the rest. Where? Harlan glanced at her. There are men in town who will work for cash, and no questions. They are not clean. But they know cattle. You mean drifters. I mean men who will not run when it gets hard. He paused. You will ride with them. You will sleep on the ground. You will eat dust and drink bad water and break your back every day for 3 weeks. If you fall behind, no one will wait. If you complain, no one will care. This is not a church social, Clara. This is survival work. She lifted her chin. I can handle it. Can you handle me? The question hung between them. Clara felt the heat of it, the edge of something unspoken. She met his eyes. What does that mean? It means we will be alone out there. It means people will talk. It means by the time we get back, your reputation will be in shreds, no matter what actually happens. Then, I will rebuild it. You cannot rebuild what people decide you are. Clara stepped closer. Let me be very clear, Mr. Briggs. I do not care what people think. I care about saving my family. If that means riding with a crew of drifters and a surveyor with a criminal past, so be it. If that means destroying my reputation, I will live with it. I have lived with worse. Harlan studied her. Then he nodded slowly. All right. We leave in 3 days. Bring what you can carry, and nothing You cannot afford to lose. What about Keller? I will send him a message that the survey is delayed due to weather. That buys us 2 weeks, maybe 3. After that, he will come looking. And if he finds us on the trail, then we run the herd harder and hope we reach Dodge first. That is not a plan. It is the only plan we have. Clara looked out at the dark shapes of the cattle, the vast, empty land beyond. She thought of her father's grave back east, the unmarked plot in a pauper's field. She thought of her mother's face tonight, the fear and the resignation. She thought of the ledger books she had balanced for 6 months, trying to hold back a tide that could not be stopped by numbers alone. She thought of Harlan's eyes when he admitted his crime, the raw honesty that should have repelled her but instead made her want to trust him in a way that terrified her. I will see you in 3 days, she said. She turned and walked back to her horse. She did not look back. She did not let herself doubt. She mounted and rode toward town under the rising stars, the wind cold on her face, her heart pounding with the knowledge that she had just set something in motion that could not be stopped. Behind her, Harlan watched until the darkness swallowed her. Then he lifted the lantern and walked back to the barn, where 2 men waited in the shadows. One was tall and lean with a scar across his cheek. The other was broad-shouldered and missing half an ear. Both wore guns low on their hips. Both had the look of men who had killed before and would again if necessary. She agreed? The scarred man asked. She did. The broad man grunted. She is a fool. Harlan set the lantern down. She is desperate. There is a difference. Keller will hunt us. Let him. By the time he figures out where we went, we will be halfway to Dodge. And if he catches us? Harlan met the man's eyes. Then we make sure the girl gets through alive, and we hold the line long enough for her to reach the railhead. You would die for her. I would die for a lot of things. This one just happens to be worth it. The scarred man smiled, a cold expression. You are in love with her. Harlan did not answer. He picked up the lantern and walked toward the house, leaving the 2 men in the dark. 3 days later, Clara stood in the pre-dawn cold outside the ranch gates with a canvas pack and a bedroll strapped to a borrowed saddle. She wore men's trousers under her skirt, boots that laced to her knees, and a wide-brimmed hat that had belonged to her father. Her braid hung down her back. Her hands were steady on the reins. Harlan rode up, leading a string of pack horses. Behind him came the 2 men she had seen in the barn, plus 3 more she did not recognize. All of them looked hard and weathered. All of them wore guns. Clara felt the weight of their stares. She ignored it. Harlan reined in beside her. You ready? Yes. No second thoughts? Too late for that. He almost smiled. Then let us go. They moved out as the sky lightened to gray. The herd stirred, restless and unwilling. The men spread out, calling and whistling, pushing the cattle forward with practiced ease. Clara stayed close to Harlan, watching the way he directed the flow, the way he read the herd's mood and adjusted his position without wasted motion. By full daylight, they were 5 miles out, dust rising in a choking cloud, the sun climbing into a sky that promised brutal heat. Harlan rode up beside her. You doing all right? Clara coughed, wiping dust from her face. I am fine. You look like you are about to fall off that horse. I said I am fine. He reached over and handed her a canteen. Drink. Slowly. If you get sick, I am not stopping. She drank, the water warm and metallic. She handed it back. How long until the first camp? 6 hours. 6 hours. Clara felt her thighs already aching, her back tight, her skin burning under the relentless sun. She straightened. Then we ride for 6 hours. Harlan studied her. Then he nodded and moved off to check the flanks. The day stretched into an eternity of heat and dust and the constant bawling of cattle. Clara's world narrowed to the rhythm of her horse's gait, the creak of leather, the shouts of the men, the throbbing pain in every muscle. She did not complain. She did not ask for rest. She rode. When they finally stopped to make camp, she slid from the saddle and nearly collapsed. Harlan caught her arm, steadying her. She jerked away. I am fine. You are about to pass out. I said I am fine. He let go. Suit yourself. She stumbled toward the supply wagon, found a tin cup, and poured water from the barrel. Her hands shook. She drank 3 cups in quick succession, then sat down hard on the ground and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, the sky was deep blue twilight, and a fire crackled nearby. Someone had spread her bedroll. A plate of beans and hardtack sat beside it. She sat up, wincing at the stiffness in her shoulders. Harlan crouched by the fire, pouring coffee into a battered tin cup. He glanced over. You slept 2 hours. I did not mean to. You needed it. He brought the cup to her. Drink this. You will feel better. She took it. The coffee was bitter and strong. It burned going down and settled warm in her stomach. Thank you. Do not thank me. Just keep moving tomorrow. Clara watched him across the fire. The other men were scattered around the camp, eating and talking in low voices. No one looked at her. No one acknowledged her presence beyond the basic logistics of the drive. It should have felt isolating. Instead, it felt like relief. She was not here to be coddled. She was here to work. Harlan, she said quietly. He looked up. Why are you really doing this? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, because I am tired of being owned. Because I want one thing in my life that I chose instead of something that was forced on me. Because when I look at you, I see someone who refuses to quit no matter how bad it gets. And that is the kind of person I want to be. Clara's throat tightened. That is not an answer. Yes, it is. You just do not like it. She looked away, staring into the fire. The flames danced and crackled. Somewhere beyond the light, cattle stirred and settled. The stars were coming out, hard and bright in the clear sky. I do not know if I can do this, she said. You can. How do you know? Because you are still here. The second day was worse. Clara's body screamed with every movement. Her hands blistered from the reins. Her face burned despite the hat. By midday, she was riding in a haze of pain and heat that made everything shimmer and blur. One of the men, the scarred one, rode up beside her. You are slowing us down. Clara kept her eyes forward. Then, ride faster. He laughed, a harsh sound. You got spine. I will give you that. But spine does not get cattle to dodge. Speed does. Then tell Briggs to push harder. I am telling you. He leaned closer. You fall behind, we leave you. Understood? Understood. He rode off. Clara gritted her teeth and urged her horse forward. The sun climbed higher. The dust thickened. Her vision swam. She was barely aware of Harlan riding up beside her. She felt his hand on her reins, slowing her horse. She blinked, trying to focus. "Rest," he said. "We cannot stop." "I did not say stop. I said rest. Let your horse carry you for a mile. Close your eyes. Breathe." Clara wanted to argue. She did not have the strength. She closed her eyes. The world swayed. She felt Harlan's hand on her shoulder, steadying her, his grip firm and warm. "I have you," he said quietly. "Just breathe." She breathed. The pain receded slightly. The dizziness faded. When she opened her eyes, they were still moving, the herd flowing around them like a river of dust and muscle. "Thank you," she whispered. "Save it for Dodge." That night she collapsed without eating. In the morning she forced herself upright and climbed back into the saddle. The pattern repeated. Pain. Dust. Heat. Harlan's voice cutting through the haze, sharp and grounding. The slow, grinding miles. On the fourth day, they reached the first river crossing. The water ran fast and brown, swollen from upstream storms. The cattle balked at the edge, milling and lowing. Harlan rode to the front, studying the current. "We cross here," he called. "Single file. Keep them moving. If one goes down, let it go." Clara stared at the churning water. It looked deep. It looked dangerous. Harlan turned his horse toward the water. He did not hesitate. He rode straight in, the horse plunging forward, water rising to its chest. He kept moving, steady and calm, until he reached the far bank. Then he turned and waved the others forward. The men drove the cattle in. The herd surged, reluctant and clumsy. Clara stayed at the rear, watching the chaos unfold. Cattle slipped and scrambled. One went under, thrashing. A man cursed and rode in after it. The animal surfaced, wild-eyed, and lunged for the far bank. Clara's horse shifted nervously. She tightened the reins. Her turn. She rode forward into the water. The cold hit her like a fist. The current grabbed at the horse's legs, pulling sideways. Clara leaned forward, gripping with her knees, her heart hammering. The water rose to her waist. Her skirt dragged, heavy and soaked. The horse stumbled. She felt the world tilt. Then Harlan was there, his horse crashing through the current, his hand reaching for her reins. He hauled her horse upright with sheer strength, dragging them both toward the bank. They surged out of the water, gasping and dripping. Clara slid from the saddle and sat down hard on the muddy ground. Her whole body shook. Harlan dismounted and crouched beside her. "You all right?" She nodded, unable to speak. "That was stupid," he said. "You should have called for help. I did not want to slow us down. You would have slowed us down more if you drowned." He pulled off his hat and wiped his face. "Do not do that again." "Do what?" "Risk your life to prove you are tough enough. You are already tough enough. You do not have to die proving it." Clara looked up at him. Water dripped from his hair. His eyes were fierce and bright. She realized she was crying, and she did not know when it had started. "I am sorry," she said. "Do not apologize. Just stay alive." He stood and walked away, leaving her sitting in the mud with her heart breaking open for reasons she could not name. The days blurred together after that. Clara learned to read the rhythm of the drive, to anticipate trouble, to move with the herd instead of fighting it. She learned the names of the men, The scarred one was called Rafe. The broad one was Doyle. The others were Harper, Mills, and a silent kid named Tomas, who could not have been more than 16. She learned that Harlan never slept more than 3 hours at a stretch. She learned that he checked the horses every night and double-checked the supplies every morning. She learned that he carried a knife in his boot and a derringer in his coat pocket, and a wound in his past that he would not talk about. She learned that she trusted him in a way that should have terrified her, but instead felt like the only solid thing in a world that had turned to dust and wind. On the 8th night, they camped near a dry creek bed under a sky thick with stars. Clara sat by the fire, mending a torn sleeve with needle and thread from the supply pack. The men were scattered around the camp, playing cards and passing a bottle. Harlan sat across from her, cleaning his rifle. The firelight caught the angles of his face, the way his hands moved with precise, practiced efficiency. "How much farther?" she asked. "Halfway." "That is all?" He glanced up. "You were expecting more progress?" "I was expecting less pain." He almost smiled. "The pain means you are still alive. That is not comforting." It was not meant to be. She tied off the thread and bit it clean. "Why did your sister need treatment?" Harlan's hands stilled. Then he set the rifle aside. "Consumption. She was 14. The doctors said she had 6 months. I got her into a sanatorium in Colorado Springs. It cost everything I had and everything I could steal. Did it work? She lived. She is married now, has a baby. She does not know what I did to save her. Are you going to tell her?" "No." "Why not?" "Because she deserves to believe the world is better than it is." Clara looked at him. "That is the saddest thing I have ever heard." He picked up the rifle again. Sad does not make it wrong. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that honesty mattered, that secrets poisoned everything, that he deserved forgiveness. But she thought of her own secrets, the ledgers she had hidden from the bank auditors, the loan she had approved without proper collateral, because the family needed it, and she could not bear to turn them away. She thought of all the ways she had bent the rules to survive, and she wondered if she was any different from him. "Harlan," she said quietly. He looked up. "If we make it to Dodge, if we get the money and pay off Keller, what will you do after?" He was silent for a long moment. "I do not know. You must have thought about it." "I have thought about a lot of things. Most of them are not possible." "Such as?" He held her gaze. "Such as staying in one place long enough to build something that matters. Such as earning the trust of someone worth trusting. Such as proving I am more than the worst thing I ever did." Clara's chest tightened. "You already proved that." "No. I just convinced you to gamble on me." "That is not the same thing." "It is to me." Harlan shook his head. "You do not know me, Clara. You know the version of me that needs you to succeed. You do not know what I am like when the pressure is off and the stakes are low and there is no reason to be decent anymore. Then I will find out. What if you do not like what you find?" Clara set the mended shirt aside. "Then I will deal with it, the same way I deal with everything else. One day at a time, until the problem is solved or I am dead." He stared at her. Then he laughed, a low, rough sound. "You are terrifying." "Good. I mean it." "So do I." The fire crackled. Somewhere beyond the light, a horse stamped and blew. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and infinite. Harlan stood and walked around the fire. He sat down beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. He did not touch her. He just sat, staring into the flames. "If we make it," he said quietly, "I am going to ask you something." "What?" "Something you will probably say no to." Clara's heart kicked. "Ask me now." "No." "Why not?" "Because if you say no, I do not want to spend the next 2 weeks knowing it. That is cowardly." He turned his head, his eyes dark and steady. "I never said I was brave." Clara held his gaze. She felt the pull of him, the gravity of proximity, the dangerous heat of possibility. She thought of all the reasons this was a terrible idea. She thought of Keller hunting them, of the drive that could still fail, of the reputation she would never recover. She thought of the way Harlan had ridden into the river to pull her out, the way he checked on her every night without asking, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. She leaned forward and kissed him. It was brief, barely more than a brush of lips, but it was enough to change everything. When she pulled back, Harlan's eyes were wide. "Clara, what are you doing?" "Proving I am not afraid." "You should be." "I know." He reached up, his hand cupping her cheek. His thumb traced her jaw. "If we do this, there is no going back. I do not want to go back." He kissed her then, slow and deep, and the world fell away. There was only the heat of him, the taste of dust and coffee and desperation, the way he held her like she was something precious and breakable and necessary all at once. When they finally broke apart, Clara was shaking. Harlan rested his forehead against hers, his breath ragged. "We should not have done that," he said. "Probably not. If anyone saw, I do not care. You will care when we get back." Clara pulled away, meeting his eyes. "If we get back, I am going to ask you something too." "What?" "Something you will probably say no to." "Try me. Marry me." Harlan stared. "What?" "Marry me. For real. Not a bargain, not a strategy. Just marry me. Because we survived this, and because I want you to stay, and because I think we could build something worth keeping." "Clara, I am a thief. I am a wanted man. I am everything you should run from. You are also the person who believed I could do this when no one else did. You are the person who pulled me out of the river. You are the person I trust. That is enough." He shook his head. "You deserve better." Clara smiled. "I do not want better. I want you." Harlan closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. "Ask me again when we reach Dodge." "I will." The 10th day brought the storm. It came out of the northwest, a wall of black clouds that swallowed the horizon. The wind picked up, whipping dust into blinding curtains. The cattle grew restless, milling and lowing. Harlan rode up and down the line shouting orders. "Get them bunched tight! Do not let them scatter!" The men worked frantically, pushing the herd into a tighter group. Clara rode at the edge, her hat pulled low against the wind. The first drops of rain hit like stones. Then the sky opened up. The rain came in sheets, cold and brutal. Lightning split the sky. Thunder rolled across the plain like cannon fire. The cattle panicked. They broke, 300 head of cattle stampeding across open ground in a storm is a vision of chaos Clara would never forget. The sound alone was overwhelming, a roar that drowned out everything else. She saw Harlan riding hard toward the front, trying to turn the lead animals. She saw Rafe and Doyle flanking, trying to contain the edges. She spurred her horse forward, riding blind into the storm. The world was noise and motion and terror. She could barely see. Rain lashed her face. Lightning flashed, freezing the scene in stark bursts. Cattle everywhere, running wild, horns gleaming, eyes rolling white. She saw a man go down, his horse stumbling in the mud. She did not see him get up. She saw Harlan cut in front of the leaders, his horse wheeling and lunging, forcing the animals to turn. Slowly, impossibly, the stampede began to curve. The leaders turned. The rest followed. The run slowed. The herd bunched again, still panicked, but contained. The storm raged for another hour. By the time it passed, the world was a muddy wreck. The herd was scattered, but not lost. The men were soaked and exhausted, and one man was missing. It was Tomas, the silent kid. They found him an hour later, pinned under his horse, unconscious, but alive. Harlan and Doyle lifted the horse off him. Clara knelt beside the boy, checking for broken bones. His leg was twisted at a bad angle. His face was pale. "We need to set it," she said. Harlan crouched beside her. "Do you know how? My father broke his leg when I was 12. I watched the doctors set it. That is not the same as doing it yourself. It is all we have." She sent Rafe for splints and cloth. She tore strips from her petticoat. She cleaned the boy's leg as best she could, her hands steady despite the trembling inside her. Then, she gripped the ankle and pulled. Tomas screamed. The bone shifted. She heard it click into place. She wrapped the leg tight, splinted it with branches, and tied it off. By the time she finished, the boy had passed out again. Harlan stared at her. "Where did you learn that?" "I just did." He shook his head slowly. "You are full of surprises." Clara wiped blood and mud from her hands. "We need to move him. We cannot take him to Dodge like this. Then we leave him at the next town and come back for him after the drive. There is no next town for another 3 days. Then we carry him." They rigged a travois from poles and canvas and dragged the kid behind one of the pack horses. It slowed them down, but Clara would not hear of leaving him behind. They pushed on. That night, Harlan sat beside her at the fire. He did not say anything. He just reached over and took her hand. She laced her fingers through his and held on. On the 14th day, they reached a settlement called Hayes Creek, barely more than a trading post and a few scattered shacks. They left Tomas with the postmaster's wife, who agreed to care for him until they returned. Clara paid her from the small emergency fund Harlan carried. They rested for a day, restocked supplies, and pushed on. The land changed as they moved north. The grassland gave way to rolling hills, then to rougher country with scattered rock outcrops and dry gullies. The heat was relentless. Water became scarce. They rationed carefully. Clara rode in silence most days now. Her body passed exhaustion. Her mind narrowed to the simple task of staying upright and moving forward. She did not think about Juniper Prairie. She did not think about the bank or her mother or the future. She thought only about the next mile. Harlan rode beside her more often now. They did not talk much. They did not need to. The silence between them was comfortable, a shared weight that felt lighter because it was carried together. On the 16th night, Rafe rode into camp late, his face grim. We got company. Harlan stood. How many? 4. Maybe 5. Been tracking us since this morning. Keller? She leaded Nor that is supposed betch me, 1C for self-times, whist to rant. I came once Gus, and then tours were not her handset. There was place where lost whiles white, and Alred wisp tired. Cone let Brandy didn't see get out of that thing. I Keller? I towered coin. I would bet on it. Harlan swore. How far back? Half a day. Less if they push. Clara felt ice slide down her spine. She stood. What do we do? Harlan turned to her. We run the herd harder. If we can reach the railhead before they catch us, we are safe. And if we cannot, then we fight. She nodded. All right. He crossed to her, his hands gripping her shoulders. Listen to me. If it comes to that, you take the fastest horse and you run. Do not stop. Do not look back. You get to Dodge, and you sell the herd, and you pay off your family's debts. Understood? No. Clara. She leaded Nor than a spiced. Let's splessed around her. And mentaling the story, where there are not her ham. Their rest place where lost whiles white. Lisp tie-end. Cone let Granding didn't get out of them. Clarad Halmai had done, all the crying the player or spones the twice. I am not leaving you to die alone. I am not asking. I am telling you. This is not your fight. Yes, it is. You made it my fight when you offered me this deal. You made it my fight when you pulled me out of the river. You made it my fight when you kissed me back. So do not tell me to run. I will not do it. Harlan stared at her. Then he pulled her close and kissed her hard, his hands in her hair, his breath ragged. When he let go, his eyes were fierce. You are going to get us both killed. Probably. He laughed, sharp and desperate. God help me. They doubled the watch that night. No one slept much. At first light they moved the herd out fast, pushing the cattle to a near run. The animals balked and stumbled, but the men drove them forward with shouts and whips and relentless pressure. By midday the herd was strung out and exhausted. By evening they were 5 miles closer to Dodge. By nightfall they could see the faint glow of the railhead town on the horizon. Rafe rode in. They are closing. How long? An hour. Maybe less. Harlan turned to Clara. Go. Now. No. Clara. Please. She drew her father's old revolver from her belt, checked the load, and looked at him. I said no. He closed his eyes. Then he nodded. All right. Then we hold them here. The men spread out in a loose line, using the herd as cover. The cattle milled, uneasy and tired. The light faded. The stars came out. And then they heard the hoofbeats. 5 riders came out of the dark, spread wide, moving fast. Keller was in the center, a big man on a big horse, his coat flapping behind him. He reined in 20 yards out. Briggs! His voice carried across the distance. I want what I am owed. Harlan stepped forward. You will get it. In cash. 2 weeks from now. That was not the deal. The deal changed. Keller laughed. You think you can cheat me and walk away? You think I am just going to let you finish this drive and pretend nothing happened? I think you will take the money, or you will die trying to take the ranch. Your choice. Keller spurred his horse forward. His men followed. Harlan raised his rifle. The first shot came from Keller's side. It went wide. Harlan fired back, aiming low, hitting one of the horses. The animal screamed and went down. Its rider rolled clear, cursing. Then, it was chaos. Gunfire erupted from both sides. Clara dropped to one knee, aimed, and fired. She did not know if she hit anything. She just kept pulling the trigger, her ears ringing, her heart hammering. Harlan was beside her, firing in controlled bursts, his face set and grim. Rafe and Doyle were flanking, using the cattle for cover. The herd panicked again, scattering in all directions. One of Keller's men went down. Another turned and ran. Keller kept coming, firing as he rode. Harlan stepped in front of Clara, his rifle empty, his hand dropping to the knife in his boot. Keller reined in 5 feet away, his gun aimed at Harlan's chest. Clever, Briggs, but not clever enough. Harlan did not move. You kill me, you get nothing. The survey is with a lawyer in Dodge. If I do not show up to claim it, it goes public. Every claim you have ever filed will be examined. You will lose everything. You are bluffing. Am I? Keller's eyes narrowed. Then he shifted his aim toward Clara. But I do not need you. I just need her dead, so the ranch defaults to the state, and I can buy it at auction. Time slowed. Clara saw Keller's finger tighten on the trigger. She saw Harlan lunge forward. She saw the muzzle flash. And then she was on the ground, Harlan on top of her, his weight crushing the air from her lungs. She heard a second shot. A third. Then silence. Harlan rolled off her. She gasped, her chest burning. She looked up. Keller was on the ground, a red stain spreading across his chest. Rafe stood over him, his gun smoking. The remaining riders turned and fled into the dark. Clara sat up, shaking. Harlan knelt beside her, his hands running over her arms, her shoulders, checking for wounds. Are you hurt? No. I am fine. Are you? He nodded. His face was pale. His hands were trembling. Clara grabbed his collar and pulled him close. Do not ever do that again. Which part? Throw yourself in front of a bullet meant for me. I will do it every time. She kissed him, hard and desperate, tasting dust and fear and relief. When they broke apart, she was crying again. I hate you. No, you do not. No. I do not. They buried Keller in a shallow grave and left no marker. They rounded up the scattered herd and pushed through the night. By dawn, they could see the stockyards of Dodge City rising from the plain. By noon, they had sold the cattle. The buyer was a sharp-eyed man in a good suit, who counted out the money without comment. Clara stood beside Harlan and watched the bills stack up. $3,000. More than enough. She paid Harlan his $2,000. She paid the crew. She sent money to Hayes Creek for Tomas. She bought a clean dress and a room at the hotel and slept for 12 hours straight. When she woke, Harlan was sitting in the chair by the window, clean-shaven, wearing a new shirt. He looked younger. He looked free. Clara sat up. Did you send the message to Keller's estate? I did. Told them he died in an accident on the trail. Sent them a letter releasing his claim on the ranch in exchange for closing his debt to me. It is done. And the survey? Filed this morning. Your deed is clean. She let out a breath she did not know she was holding. We did it. You did it. We did it together. Harlan smiled. Then he stood and crossed to the bed. He knelt beside it, taking her hand. Clara Tanner. She looked down at him, her heart suddenly too big for her chest. Yes? Will you marry me? I already asked you first. I know. But I wanted to do it properly. Clara laughed, tears spilling over. This is properly? This is the best I can do. Then yes. Yes, I will marry you. He kissed her, slow and gentle, and the world outside the window faded to nothing. They married 3 days later in a small church with a tired preacher and 2 witnesses pulled from the street. Clara wore the clean dress. Harlan wore the new shirt. It was not fancy. It was not grand. It was theirs. They traveled back to Juniper Prairie with the deed, the money, and a crew of men who had become something like friends. They collected Tomas from Hayes Creek, his leg healing well. They rode into town at sunset. Clara's mother cried. Her brother shook Harlan's hand and said, You better be good to her. Harlan said, I will try. That night, Clara stood on the porch of the ranch house, looking out at the land that was now truly theirs. The sky was deep blue twilight. The wind was cool and soft. Somewhere beyond the barn, cattle lowed. Harlan came up behind her, his arms sliding around her waist. What are you thinking? That I do not know what happens next. Does that scare you? Clara leaned back against him. No. It feels right. Good. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. Thank you. For what? For believing I could do it. For pulling me out of the river. For staying. He kissed her forehead. Thank you for asking me to. The seasons turned. Clara returned to her work at the bank. But now, she rode home to Highwind Ranch every evening. Harlan took over the surveying work in the valley, earning trust slowly, but earning it. They hired men to work the cattle. They rebuilt the fences. They planted a garden. Clara's mother moved into the main house. Her brother took over the day-to-day ranch operations. The family settled into a rhythm that felt steady and real. In the evenings, Clara and Harlan sat on the porch and watched the sun go down. They talked about the future. They talked about the past. They talked about the cattle drive and the river crossing, and the storm, and the night Keller died. But mostly, they just sat in silence, her hand in his, and let the quiet settle around them like a blessing. One evening in late autumn, Harlan said, I got a letter from my sister. Clara looked up. What did it say? She wants to visit. She wants to meet you. What did you tell her? I told her yes. I told her everything. Clara's breath caught. Everything? Everything. The theft. The debt. Keller. The drive. You. All of it. All of it. And? Harlan smiled. She said she always knew I was too stubborn to die alone. Clara laughed. I like her already. You will love her. She rested her head on his shoulder. What about you? What about me? Do you love me? He turned, tilting her face up. Every day. More than the day before. That is not an answer. Yes, it is. She kissed him. It was slow and easy and full of the kind of peace that only comes after surviving the storm. When they pulled apart, the stars were out, hard and bright in the clear sky. Clara thought of the clerk she had been 6 months ago. The woman who thought she could balance ledgers and keep secrets, and hold the world at bay with nothing but numbers and fear. She thought of the woman she had become, the one who had ridden into the storm and come out the other side with her heart still intact. She thought of Harlan, the man who had carried a debt so heavy it should have crushed him, and who had chosen to carry her instead. She thought of the land stretching out in all directions, wide and open and full of possibility. And she thought, this is enough. This is more than enough. This is everything. Harlan squeezed her hand. What are you thinking? Clara smiled. That we should probably get some sleep. We have work in the morning. Always work. Always. He stood and pulled her to her feet. They walked inside together, the door closing softly behind them, the night settling over the ranch like a blanket. And somewhere beyond the walls, the cattle stirred, and the wind blew, and the prairie kept turning under the stars, indifferent and eternal and beautiful. The winter came cold and hard. Snow fell in heavy drifts, covering the prairie in white silence. The cattle huddled in the sheltered valleys. The men worked from dawn to dark, breaking ice on the water troughs, hauling feed, mending what the storms broke. Clara kept the books. She tracked every expense, every head of cattle, every debt paid, and every dollar earned. The ranch was solvent now, truly solvent, for the first time in years. It felt like a miracle. It felt like something they had clawed from the earth with their bare hands. Harlan worked beside her most evenings, helping with the accounts, checking her figures. He had a head for numbers that surprised her. He had a lot of things that surprised her. One night in January, she looked up from the ledger and said, "We should expand." He glanced over. "Expand what?" "The herd. We have the land. We have the water. We could double our stock by spring. We would need more men. We can hire them. We would need more capital. We can borrow it." Clara met his eyes. "The bank trusts me. I can get a loan on good terms." Harlan leaned back in his chair. "You want to risk everything we just saved? I want to build something that lasts. Something bigger than just survival." He studied her. Then he nodded. "All right. Let us do it." They borrowed the money. They hired 3 new men. They bought 100 head of young stock and spent the spring raising them. It was hard work. It was exhausting. It was the best thing Clara had ever done. By summer, the ranch was thriving. The herd was healthy. The fences were strong. The land bloomed green after the rains. Clara stood on the porch one morning and looked out at the work they had done, the life they had built, and felt something she had not felt in years. Pride. Harlan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you smiling about?" She leaned back against him. "Everything. That is a lot." "I know." He kissed her temple. "I have something to tell you. That sounds serious." Clara turned in his arms, studying his face. "What is it?" "My sister is pregnant again. She wants to name the baby after me if it is a boy. That is wonderful. She also wants us to come visit. Stay for a month. Meet the family. Clara's heart squeezed. You want to go? I want you to meet the person I saved. I want her to see what you did for me. He paused. I want to stop hiding. Clara reached up, her hand cupping his cheek. Then, let us go. They traveled to Colorado Springs in August. They stayed with Harlan's sister, a small woman with bright eyes and a laugh that filled the house. Her husband was kind. Her children were loud and joyful. And she cried when she met Clara, holding her hands and saying, "Thank you. Thank you for bringing him back." Clara did not know how to explain that Harlan had brought himself back, that she had only offered a reason to try. So she just hugged the woman and said, "He did the work." They spent 4 weeks in the mountains, hiking and talking, and learning the shape of Harlan's past. Clara met the people he had grown up with, the places he had loved, the scars he carried. She saw the man he had been before desperation twisted him into something he was not, and she loved him more. On their last night, they sat on the porch of his sister's house, watching the sunset paint the peaks gold and red. Harlan held Clara's hand. "I need to tell you something," he said. Clara looked at him. "All right. I lied to you." Back at the beginning, she went still. "About what?" "About why I agreed to lead the drive. I told you I wanted a way out from Keller. That was true. But it was not the whole truth." "Then what was the whole truth?" Harlan turned to face her. "I agreed. Because the moment I saw you in that bank, standing up to men twice your size, I knew you were the kind of person I wanted to become. I agreed, because I thought if I could help you save your family, maybe I could prove I was not just the man who stole to survive. Maybe I could be the man who built something worth keeping." He paused. "I agreed, because I was already falling in love with you, and I did not know how to say it." Clara's throat tightened. "You should have said it. I was afraid you would say no." "I would not have said no." "How do you know?" "Because I was falling in love with you too. From the moment you walked through that door and looked at me like I mattered. I did not know what I was doing. Neither did I." She smiled. "We figured it out." Harlan laughed. "We nearly died figuring it out. But we did not die. We lived. We are still living." He kissed her, and the mountains watched, and the sky turned dark, and somewhere far away on the plains, their ranch waited for them to come home. They returned to Juniper Prairie in September. The ranch had run smoothly in their absence. The herd was fat and healthy. The men greeted them with nods and quick smiles. Clara's mother had planted roses by the porch. Her brother had repaired the barn roof. Everything was as it should be. That night, Clara and Harlan lay in their bed, the window open to the cool prairie wind. She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Yes. Do you regret anything?" "Only the things I cannot change." "Such as?" "The years I wasted running. The people I hurt. The man I used to be." Clara lifted her head, looking at him. "You are not that man anymore. I know. But he is still part of me." "Good." She kissed him. "He made you who you are. And I love who you are." Harlan smiled. "Even the broken parts?" "Especially the broken parts." They lay in silence, the wind moving through the curtains, the stars bright beyond the glass. Clara thought of the cattle drive, the river crossing, the storm, the gunfight. She thought of all the ways she could have died, all the ways they could have failed. And she thought of the fact that they had not failed. They had survived. They had built something real. They had chosen each other, and they had made it work. That was enough. That was everything. Harlan's hand moved to her stomach. "What are you thinking?" Clara caught his hand. "That we should probably expand the house." "Why?" "Because in about 7 months, we are going to need more room." His hand went still. "Clara, are you saying—" "Yes." He sat up, his eyes wide. "When did you know?" "This morning. I saw the doctor before we left Colorado Springs. And you waited until now to tell me?" "I wanted to wait until we were home." Harlan pulled her close, his arms tight around her. His breath was unsteady. "Are you all right?" "I am perfect." "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Good." "Me too." Clara laughed. "That is not comforting. It is honest." They held each other in the dark, the future unfolding around them like the prairie unfolding under the sky. Vast, uncertain, beautiful, and theirs. In the years that followed, Clara and Harlan built a life that was messy and hard, and full of the kind of love that only grows when two people refuse to quit on each other. They raised cattle. They raised children. They expanded the ranch. They paid off the loans. They survived droughts and storms and the slow, steady work of making a home. And every year on the anniversary of the day they met, Clara stood at the bank window and remembered the moment Harlan Briggs walked through the door and changed everything. She remembered the fear, the risk, the desperate gamble that should have destroyed them. She remembered the river crossing, the storm, the night Keller died. And she remembered the way Harlan looked at her in the dark, when there was no one else to see, and said, "I will try." That was all anyone could ever promise. To try, to choose each other, to hold on when the world tried to tear them apart, and to build something worth keeping. Clara turned from the window, her hand resting on the polished wood of the counter. Outside, the town moved through its rhythms. Inside, the ledgers were balanced. The accounts were clean. The future was uncertain.